Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. I have a special guest here. Her name is Ellen Elizabeth. She is an author and coach representing people who are dealing with the struggle and the shame that comes from feelings of inadequacy. Her memoir, Split Ends, will be published May 23rd of this year. She strives to inspire people to define who they want to be and to help them transform their demons into dreams through radical honesty. Thank you so much, Ellen Elizabeth, for joining today.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to have our conversation and hopefully have some listeners really feel some inspiration.
Absolutely. And what I want to do today is I just really want to hear your story, your background, and how you were able to overcome your addiction with drugs and alcohol.
Of course, I love sharing my story because I never know who's going to hear it and hear what they need to hear. So I started with a normal childhood. Everything was good. I was a good student, straight A's, played sports, did band, did all the things in school, and I never really partied a ton in high school. I tried it a few times, but it wasn't an obsession at that point. I met my first boyfriend when I was 17, and he was my first serious boyfriend. I didn't know when I met him that he was actually a drug addict, and he introduced me to hard drugs. So I kind of just went from 0 to 1,000 very quickly. I wanted to do anything for him. Um, I I just had a completely wrong idea of what love was. I feel like I totally changed who I was to be who he wanted me to be. And drugs were a big part of his life. So they became a big part of my life. I was so scared of losing him that I just really did whatever needed to be done. So that was really a terrible part of my life. It was while I was trying to go to college and I was transferring all the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I only wanted to be where he was. We ended up moving to a different state, and that's when things really got worse. And I ended up having to withdraw from that university because I was failing. I didn't go to class. I had been up all night doing drugs and did drugs before going to school, and it was just unmanageable. At that time, um, I kind of had this little notion in my head, like, this is kind of an addictive behavior. But I was like, oh, I'm not an addict. It's just what college kids do. I'm at that age where we're supposed to try things and blah, blah, blah. So I just tried to convince myself everything was okay. And I eventually, I called my mom one day and just told her how terrible. I never said I was on drugs. So I convinced everyone I was having mental issues. But I was like, I need to come home. And so she got in the car. She and my dad came to pick me up. And I came home to Colorado, which is where I live now. So through all that, I was able to finally realize I could break up with him and could be okay. So I did do that. And I just removed myself from him, and that removed me from the drugs. So looking back at that, I don't really understand how I was able to do that. I don't remember getting withdrawals or going through, I didn't go to a rehab or start doing any programs. But I did start drinking alcohol every day. So I basically switched one for the other. And at that point, I was 21, and I thought that 21-year-olds just drink every day. I started drinking at 5, thought that was normal because it's happy hour, and just drank all night every night. So obviously that's not normal, but to me, I thought it was. I convinced myself everything I was doing was just what everyone else did. So I went through the party phase and then I had some other relationships. One of them, I'm pretty sure the reason he broke up with me was for my alcoholism. Um, he had tried to get me to go to AA, and I thought it was stupid. I didn't like it. I thought everything about it was weird, and obviously I was only going to AA because he wanted me to, so I wasn't there for me. And that's really the only way you can get sober, is if you want to. So I kept drinking, met my now husband. We, were mid 20s, so we did go out a lot. We partied together. And then it got to the point where I needed so much more than anyone else that, like, I'd go out with my girlfriends and they'd have one shot and be tipsy. And I was like, what? I need like 6 or 7 to even feel tipsy. Like, that's not even drunk. That's just tipsy. So I started carrying extra in my purse and sneaking it at home. And so hiding it essentially. Um, and then I moved in with my husband. We weren't married yet, but we moved in together, and I really started freaking out because I didn't want him to know how much I needed. We'd still drink together, but he didn't know I needed so much more. So I started hiding water bottles in the closet, filled with vodka, and just did that as long as possible. There were really terrible things that happened. Um, I also took Ambien every night. So drinking with Ambien is a whole different, feeling, and things happen. So I had several scary, like, Ambien infused blackouts, and then scary alcohol blackouts, and became very angry, very violent. Just I I've never known how to show feelings, and they've always come out as anger. And so when I was drinking, that was just so much worse. Finally got to, I was still doing that. We're still married, or still together. We get married and we immediately start trying to have kids. We'd always wanted kids together. I was still drinking, thinking I was getting away with it. He kind of figured, I mean, he'd been through a lot of the incidences with me that weren't good. So he knew I drank a lot. He thought it was just those few times. And then I think he was starting to figure out, like, this is a lot more than what I'm seeing. And so we realized that we're not able to naturally have kids together. So we started doing fertility. First, that was the pills that help with ovulation, and then it was actual procedures that you need to do. And through the beginning of all that, I'm just chugging vodka, knowing I'm still doing all of these fertility treatments. And I tried to stop. My husband said, let's quit drinking while we're doing all this stuff because we'll be healthier. And so he would quit, and I'd be like, okay, I'm quitting too. But on the way home, I'd have 4 shooters just to, like, get it so I wasn't shaky and, like, withdrawing overnight. And I was pissed every time. I was like, this isn't getting me drunk. This is just to get me to that, like, level place. And I was just miserable. I absolutely hated it. I didn't tell any of the doctors that I was drinking so much. And it got to the point where I couldn't even fathom getting pregnant because I was so scared of having to quit. But at the same time, we've always wanted kids. That's what I've always wanted. So it was just this awful cycle of wanting kids, but not knowing how to quit, and then feeling bad about myself, blaming myself for all for infertility, just the self-loathing that comes with addiction. And it really just spiraled even more out of control. And on, like, this one weekend where I was trying to be under control because we were still going through treatments, I drank 6 large glasses of wine and then went to a party where I had vodka and peed the bed and blacked out by a pool. It's just like, that was me trying to control it. And it just was completely insane. Insanity is, just part of it. So several other really bad things happened, and I felt like I had to drink first thing in the morning because I was so shaky, so hungover, so miserably sad and upset with myself, that's the only way I knew I could go on. So that was happening. I was still trying to control it. And it finally I reached that point where I was wasted. by 11:30, I was at work. I knew I was going to get caught and fired. And I called my husband and said, "You need to get me right now. This is what happened. They're going to notice." He wasn't happy about it, but he came, and in the car, I said, "I think I should go to rehab." That's the last thing I remember saying. And then I woke up at home and my parents were there, my husband was there, and they just said, "We found you a place to go." So that's the start of my recovery journey. That was a little over 6 years ago. So I did go to a facility. I ended up staying inpatient for about 3 weeks. And that's all insurance would allow me to do. That's a whole different conversation, is how awful insurance is for things like this. But I did continue doing outpatient for, I think, 3 to 6 more weeks. I don't really remember. And then I started doing AA off like as often as I possibly could. That was my first form of recovery. I've now found several other different recovery programs that also resonate with me. So I don't think there's only one way to recover. I think there, however works for you is absolutely what works. So for me, it's AA and other like online recovery communities. And I do volunteer work at recovery centers, and I'm becoming a coach to help people throughout all of this. And really just for me, the actual steps of AA are really powerful and help me just live my life in a better way. You learn all about yourself in a different way than for me than ever before. Because in addiction, I just blamed everyone else and didn't look inward. I have a completely different like spiritual view. Spirituality is different than it used to be. I feel more connected to the universe. I don't call it God. I just say the universe. It can be whatever you want it to be. But and just having the support around me that I've had has been amazing. My husband has been incredible. My family's been incredible. I unfortunately did lose an entire friend group because that's what they do. They drink, and it just didn't really include me anymore, which was fine because I was uncomfortable being at those places, but it is like a grieving process still, even 6 years later, to lose those types of friends. So I did end up getting pregnant after getting sober. So we did still have to do infertility stuff. So we did IVF, and now we have twins. They're 4. So that's been crazy. And it's just kind of like everything I wanted started happening once I got sober. And I was functioning when I like considered a functional alcoholic because everything looked perfect on the outside. And no one would have guessed except for people close to me. Um, so I convinced myself everything was fine because I still had my job. I still had, a car, food, material things. And there's no way I was an alcoholic because I have all these things. Um, but it's just on the inside, I was completely dying. So now I don't have to lie about who I am. I don't have to hide and have secrets. And, I do finally have that family that I wanted. Some days it's hard to remember that I wanted them because they're 4 and they're twins and they're everywhere and all over the place. But, that's how kids are. So it's been quite the journey. I mean, it started hardcore and then just transferred to alcohol. And I think my active addiction was about 15 years. So it's just been it's completely baffling to me that I'm alive. And I feel like most people through addiction have those moments where it's like, whoa, that was pretty intense. Why am I still here? And it's just amazing to see. I mean, I feel like I needed to go through that, and I'm grateful I went through that because it made me who I am today.
Wow, that is so incredible and such a beautiful story. I know there's always those moments, those ugly moments in our addiction, those dark times. And I feel like my story and your story is just very much similar. I started doing hard drugs. My first drug before like marijuana, even cigarettes, even a
Yeah.
sip of alcohol was straight ecstasy. I was 17 years old. The
Mhm.
boyfriend at the time was going to parties and raves and everything, and then we were living together, and then we broke up. But then I was still continuing that habit of going to parties and raves. And then I remember then after that phase was out, then I turned 21, 22, and then there was the drinking phase. I dropped out of college because all I was doing was getting drunk all the time. And then
Right.
after that, I married my DJ boy, or I married my DJ boyfriend. We moved
Right.
in together, but he was an addict as well. So the only difference I would say is that your husband is very good. He's very
Yeah.
supportive, very
Yeah.
good husband, and that's amazing that you had that. Because I wish I had that. My husband was an enabler, very codependent. So if I said,
Mhm.
"Hey, go buy me a bottle of vodka," I'd have it right in 5 minutes. Or
Right.
hey, we drink together and everything. So you are so fortunate that you have such a great support system that way, that he's there like, hey, you need help, let's get you help. My husband
Right.
did not tell at the time, this is my ex-husband, I'm remarried
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Um, at the time he never once told my mom I had a problem, never even brought any awareness of my habit. He didn't say
Right.
anything. It was our lifestyle. And
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you
Mm.
for just changing your life, and it's beautiful hearing your story because there is hope even though we feel like we're dying inside. Yes, we feel like we're dying inside, but really it's just dimmed. Our light is dimmed, and we just need that light to come out again. And then once that
Right.
does come, and here you're coaching now, and you wrote a I want to talk about your book Split
Yeah.
Ends. Yeah. It's coming out May 23rd. I'm excited. I want to actually get it. I love
Well,
hearing everybody's stories and memoirs. I get so inspired because
thank
it's just
you.
amazing. Can you just share a little bit about what your memoir is about?
Absolutely. So it goes into my story that I just told you, just obviously in 250 pages or however much. So it's very much just from my childhood all the way to where I am today. It's very vulnerable, very detailed. There's things in there that I'm not proud of and that are embarrassing. And I just feel with that radical honesty, it'll really help people. Because I have a website and I started with a blog. Um, and I've had friends say, I read your last blog, it made me so uncomfortable. And I'm just like, well, that's good. I think like it hits a nerve and it makes you start thinking about stuff. So yeah, it goes into like my mental illnesses too. I have anxiety and depression and different things that you're just trying to like cover up with the drugs and alcohol. So it's always just the things that we want to numb are really what we need to like find the root of, like, why is that so hard for me to feel those feelings and to handle. So it's something I'm so proud of. I'm so excited. I'm also nervous that it's going to be out into the world, but I think it really will help a lot of people. And that's really not the only reason I did it. For me, it was very therapeutic to write the whole thing, to just go through it, to own it. But I'm sure that a lot of people will resonate with it, and that's really all I want.
Yes, they will resonate with it. And you're going to see everyone's going to be contacting you. Oh, thank you so much for this book. It's amazing. And they're just going to be raving. I just already have a feeling. I have a high intuition. And
Oh, thank you.
I definitely feel like it's going to help a lot of people. Because I'm feeling like a lot of people are feeling alone, especially during COVID. Remember
COVID.
when we're sheltered, right? I don't know
Right.
about you, but I was hearing stories that it was either one way or the other. People were either drinking a lot more, or
Mhm.
people who were drinking stopped drinking because they weren't going out as much.
Right.
What are some,
I'm
yeah.
I just can't I'm grateful I got sober before COVID because that I would have been like up to a handle a day, I'm sure, at that point. Because it's just what else is there to do? You're bored and I mean, for me, being bored was a trigger. Being alone
Yes.
was a trigger. Um, but I also found some of my online communities through COVID. So that was awesome. There's just been so much more. I mean, now there's a million Zoom meetings you can go to that are not AA related or that are AA related, and all these coaching tools you can find online. Um, but a ton of the women that I know from those communities their sobriety dates are around COVID. So it's good that people were starting to notice it. But yeah, I mean, just for anything, you're no one going through this journey is alone. And it's really the absolute hardest thing you'll ever do is asking for help. But it's really once you do, there's this entire community that will love you and just grab you in a little hug and they'll have your back forever. I mean, I've met some of my best friends through like recovery programs, and I I know that they'll answer my phone, or not my phone. They'll answer their phone if I call them, and they'll be there if I'm struggling. Everyone that saw me go through some really hard stuff during sobriety was always there for me. So it's just that asking for help is the hardest, but it's really the most important. But I mean, no one in this is alone, even though there's those times when you just feel helpless and like no one will understand, but we all do. Your story and my story are similar, and we had no idea about that until we shared. So there's just always someone in your shoes that you can relate to.
Totally. Yeah, there's always somebody. And I remember you were talking about taking Ambien and with alcohol. Like I used to have a whole bunch of vodka bottles in my, they were empty, of course. I
Yeah.
don't think alcohol lasted in my,
No.
I think it would be done in one day. I would have to drink a fifth of vodka a day in order for me to function.
Yeah.
Like similar to your story, I would have to wake up. First thing I have to drink because
Mhm.
otherwise I couldn't function, I couldn't drive, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. And I would go ahead and put the vodka in my water bottle and mix it and take it to work. I was just waiting to get caught one day, but for some reason I didn't get caught because no one knew what was going, whatever they saw on the outside, there's like, oh, she's normal.
Exactly.
No, really, I
Mhm.
was dying inside. Just like how you were saying, you just were dying inside. And I feel like community is a big, important aspect of the recovery. I feel like
Yes.
we need people.
Really
And
do.
then, yeah, and then we need more coaches like you. And I want to talk a little bit about how you coach your clients, what kind of process you take them through.
It kind of depends on the client. First I want to know what works for them. Some people are absolutely no AA. They don't relate to it whatsoever. And some people are open to it. So I really just try to get a sense of who they are and what they want and how is the best way to recover for them. So I kind of tailor it to their wants and their needs. Obviously, if they're okay with AA, then I lead them through that type of program. I'm not their sponsor, but I'm helping them through the same type of program and experience you go through with that. And if it's not AA related, I still do try to bring in the themes of just what we go through and what we're trying to cover up. So they always say alcohol is the symptom. What is it a symptom of, and why are we depending on it? Is it from something you went through in childhood? Is it from, for me, like, I think I was just kind of born an addict. It is a disease. It can just be, there was nothing that I went through that was like traumatic that would have triggered me to want to numb that feeling. So where did it come from? I'm still figuring that out to this day. Like, what is it inside of me that I needed to numb? So it's really just using the tools to get to that like deep, dark place that you were trying to cover up, and then working through it in a way that can make you see the triggers, see your part in things, see how you're reacting, um, and how you can kind of switch your thinking so that if you are feeling that way, what can you do instead of using or drinking?
Yes, yes. And what would you say are some habits that you have implemented in your life now that are healthy? Obviously, they're
Yeah,
healthy because you're
right.
not
Yeah,
using
everything's
anymore.
healthier now.
Everything's healthy. But what are some of those
Um,
habits that you started doing when in your early phases of recovery?
yeah, so I'm that total stereotypical recovery person doing all the yoga, all the meditation, all the journaling. And those things really help me. Obviously, as a writer, I love journaling. Um, I've gotten into more like exercise. I was really active in exercise when I was drinking, because I was like, oh my God, I'm having 4,000 calories of vodka a day. I should probably run 3 miles, you know. Um, so it's just now a different reason for working out. And I do also, the mid type, again, just the community. Who can I talk to? Who can give me ideas of things that they do? I still do, like, self-care is very important. I do massages, I do acupuncture, and she's always like, well, we're still detoxing your liver, and it's been 6 years, and I'm just like, good God, what did I do to it? you know so I do a lot of the holistic natural type things as well. And no, not everyone is into that type of thing, but for me, it really, I just consider it self-care. I have to just, there is a higher power in my life, and I have to connect with that every day, because it is the thing that I believe is leading me, and helping me through everything that I'm going through. So I also, there's still days that I just want to watch Netflix for 12 hours. And some days you just need stuff like that. But my sponsor is always like, well, binging is also an addiction. I'm like, well, in the alternative. So just going to watch this show in a day and be done with it. But yeah, so it just kind of depends.
That's funny. Yeah, I know, because I have a strong addiction personality too, and it's like, okay, it's either all or nothing for me.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's either all or nothing. So if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it 100%, and or I'm not gonna do it at all.
Right.
And there was no middle ground. What are some steps, or what are some ways that if people are like in the middle ground, like what can they do to make sure that they're not implementing bad habits and just overall changing themselves? Oops, I think I froze.
Right. Yes, and where they're process and what phase they're in of their recovery, if they're in that, like, gray area where they're thinking, I may be a problem drinker, but I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And it's always that, like, label that also there's just such a stigma around it, and not everyone's comfortable with the term, which is absolutely fine. I encourage people just to say, I'm sober curious, or, I'm trying to be alcohol free. You don't have to label yourself as anything that you're not comfortable with. But, I tell people that they really just, can use some of the tools, like that I use, and just try to, if you're starting to obsess about it or crave it, there are the things that, like I just mentioned, just take a pause, and instead of thinking about the drugs or alcohol, go on a walk, or you call a friend that is alcohol free, or that would support you even if they're not alcohol free. Just even trying to help someone else. Like, I heard someone say that, when they thought about drinking, they would go to a grocery store and put all the carts back into the little, because people just leave it wherever their car was, and they never, like, roll it back to the cart area. And just, like, getting out of yourself and trying to help people, instead of just sitting there obsessing about what's wrong with you and why do I have this and why can't I stop thinking about it. Just, like, go try to be a good Samaritan and do something out of your comfort zone. It just gets you out of negative self-talk.
Yes, I feel like service is a big part of recovery. I notice
Mhm.
when I'm serving others, I don't feel like I'm not even thinking about myself anymore. I'm thinking about others and how can I serve to the community. And I think
Exactly.
you're doing a great service by writing a book. And not only is it therapeutic for you, but it's going to be therapeutic for others who are reading it, as well as coaching
Right.
individuals. Now, are you coaching men and women, or is it just
Yes.
women?
Yep.
Men. That's great. Yeah.
I originally thought, like, just women, because I also have the infertility piece and everything. But I mean, there's just men, and we're all in this there's, like, no difference, like
Right.
alcohol and it doesn't matter who's struggling, doesn't matter if you make $4 million a year, or Matthew Perry making however many million a year, and people not even able to have a house, we're all going through the same thing. So I'm absolutely doing both men and women. Yeah.
That's great. Yes. And also spirituality, like you were mentioning, is a big part of the recovery process. Would you say that you were connected to the universe before you were drinking and doing drugs?
So I grew up Catholic, so I've always believed in God. I feel like now I'm spiritual instead of religious. So that's kind of, people don't always understand that. And when they think of a higher power, they just think of God, and that, can freak some people out. But my spiritual practice is so much stronger now. And it's only through the program of AA that I've learned, that portion of me. And it's, so I have changed it from God to the universe. And, I just believe that there's something that's always been with me, watching over me. There's a reason I didn't get in a car accident when I was driving blackout. There's a reason I never ran over someone when I was, driving drunk. And like, someone's been, something has always been there for me. And for people that struggle with that idea, I had someone tell me, I believe in karma, but I'm struggling with this, higher power thing. And I was like, well, just make karma your higher power. If you believe that, you know, what you put out in the world will come back to you, just make that what you believe in. And that's been working for her. So it's just all about how you think about it, and what you believe about it.
It's so funny because you remind me of there's a story of someone made just they didn't believe in anything. Like, I don't believe in anything. So they made their goldfish their
I know, I've
higher
heard of stuff like that
power.
too. And it's like, if that works, that's
If it
absolutely
works, it
fine.
works. I think the biggest thing is you need to surrender and die
Right.
to yourself. And then
Hmm.
that way you're able to evolve and grow and be who your true spirit is. And your true
Right.
spirit is just amazing, amazing. And everybody has it within them. It's not just like this person's better than this because they're doing this or no. No, it's
Right.
all in us. Everybody.
Yes.
It's just up to us to unleash it.
Go find it. Yeah, exactly. And I
Okay.
I really believe in like your highest self and your like vibrations throughout life. So, I'm on my path to finding my highest self. I'm not there, but all this crap that I had to go through that was really hard, like well, I'm not, I like to say conquering it, but it's never like gone. I haven't completely conquered it, but going through it and transforming to where I am today, is bringing me closer to my highest self. So it's kind of fun to think of it that way, because then it's like, ooh, where will I be when I'm 85? What will I have learned in, 50 more years? And I don't know, it's just, for me, it's just fun to think of like how far you can go in your lifetime.
Yeah, your potential is limitless. Is
Right.
you can do anything. I feel like people can do anything,
Yeah.
and we can manifest it too. We can definitely
Oh, I totally
manifest
believe
it.
in manifesting.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I'm all
So
about the manifesting. I'm all about the, you know, I see holistic healers and, card readers and oracle readers and all the things. And I just like to try everything, and I just leave my mind open to it all.
yeah, an open mind is very important. I mean, like you said, with the religious aspect, I feel like just so many rules. And I
Right.
thought, like, we have the right to choose because it's free will, the universal law.
Right. Right.
So people always have like conflicts with that. I never grew up spiritual or religious. And then it wasn't until then I'm just like, God help me. Then it helped me.
Mhm.
So it really just depends on what you align with, whatever you align with. And that's your spirit aligning with that. So whatever
Yeah.
that it is, and everybody's different. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. But I want to
Mhm.
know, what are like the biggest breakthroughs that you've experienced since you've quit alcohol and drugs?
So I think becoming a mom is something you're never ever prepared for. And some of the things I had to go through sober were just like my son almost died, 5 or 6 times. Had my husband had to do CPR on him 3 times. And we're sitting in the NICU, the PICU for 50 days within his, for 6 months of life. And it's like, I didn't drink through that. And, if I hadn't been sober, I would have been bringing, water bottles filled with vodka into the hospital. And, who knows if, like, I don't understand what doctors say to me when I'm sober. Like, I can't imagine when they're babbling all these words I don't understand when I'm drunk, I'd be like, oh, okay. Uh, so just, the things I've been able to handle, I never thought I would handle, in a sober way. And I feel like I mean, this is kind of silly, but every day is a breakthrough. It's just like you learn something more about yourself every day. And just like working a program and waking up sober is a breakthrough every day, because I never imagined I could go 12 hours without alcohol. Like I would physically get uncomfortable and just angry and shaky and sweaty, and my heart was racing if I didn't have booze within that amount of time. So the fact that we can go from that to 6 years in recovery is a breakthrough in itself.
Beautiful. Yes, every day is a breakthrough. And it's interesting that you talked about your son. My son was also in NICU. I did
Mm.
stop drinking during my pregnancy, and I was hemorrhaging during my pregnancy. They had induced
Right.
me because it was gestational diabetes was my last month of my third trimester. So I was putting insulin and everything, but I was monitored regularly. But for some reason, when the nurse put that thing inside me where I was supposed to open up my cervix more, blood just came rushing out. He had hypoxia. He was in NICU. His lung then collapsed. And it's like, well, I wasn't
Gosh.
drinking during that time either. So I can totally relate again
Right.
to the
Yeah,
whole NICU thing. It's so scary, but you know
I
what?
know.
They're good now. It's like I'm sure your son is
Exactly.
much better, and then
Mhm.
mine's just a little love, a bundle of joy next door, and
Right.
it's just the breakthroughs that do come with being sober minded and everything is just
Right.
incredible.
I know.
Wow.
And just the community around me when I was going through that, because, I'd been sober a couple years when I don't remember when they were born, but it'd been a while. And so I already had connections of sober people. And, there were always people it was before COVID, so they could visit in the hospital and bring us food and, check on me to make sure I'm okay. And it's just like we've talked about, the community is so strong and amazing.
Yes, and you said you had to pretty much get rid of your old friends. And how did you do that?
It really sucked. It actually, so my husband is a normie, so he can drink one and be done if he wants, which is weird, but it's like he can go. So he still wanted to be friends with this group, and I, told him why I was uncomfortable with it, but said I would try the parties a little bit. And so I did try a few times, and it's just number one, not fun because they're all drunk. Number two, like they were awkward about it, and I just didn't know how to relate anymore. Like they're in a place where they don't want to look at their own stuff. And I'm not going to preach at them. Like if someone needs help and comes to me, I will 100% help you, but I'm not going to go to a party where everyone's drunk and be like, you guys need help. Like this is what you should be doing. Like that's not what we do. So it just, eventually stopped getting contacted. It's not, I would try for a little bit. I feel like they would try for a little bit, and then it just kind of fizzled. They're still in my community. We still see them. They're, friends on social media, and like every once in a while we'll talk, but um yeah, it just kind of, it was hard for my husband too, because he felt like he lost those friendships as well. So it's been really like just managing your own relationship once you're sober, and then adding all these other people just makes it very complicated, especially since my husband has been so supportive, but he also still wants to be friends. And so we're still navigating stuff as we go. It's
Yeah.
just, you never know what's going to happen. So, I mean, he is like 100% extroverted, and I'm introverted, and drinking made me extroverted. So it helped me have good times at all these parties and stuff. And now I'm like, I'm fine just staying home and not going out. It's all, you can go if you want. So it just depends.
Yeah, that reminds me. I thought I was so cool and so much I built so much confidence when I was drinking and going out. But then I noticed I'm a little bit more fun now than I was before. I'm like, and then I'm a little bit too happy, and people think, is she still drinking?
I
I
know.
just feel like there's so much joy I have because I don't drink or don't do any drugs anymore. There's just something about being sober. I feel like I'm so connected to nature. I'm so
I
connected to like
know.
my animals, my goldfish.
Yes, my goldfish.
Yeah, I'm so
I
connected
know.
to everything, and I have just so much joy, and I love like everybody. And you're right about the whole frequency and that whole vibration. Once that is transmitted to other people, and it's like a domino effect. I always say
Right.
this in all my podcasts. It just spreads, and this is just a great conversation that I'm having with you, and I'm so grateful that you've come on today.
Thank
I wanted
you.
to say, where can people find your book
Of course.
when
So
it
you
comes out?
Yeah, it'll be posted on my website, and it'll come out on Amazon to start. It'll be a Kindle version first and then go into the print version. So I'll definitely be sending updates and links on my website, which is www.itsellenelizabeth.com. And you can also find my handles are the same on Facebook and Instagram at It's Ellen Elizabeth. So I'll be promoting it a lot on those. And yeah, I'd love to see you guys read or hear of you guys reading it. I can't wait to just get the feedback from people.
Yes, 5-star review. That's awesome. Now, I always like asking everybody this question, if anyone who is listening right now, and if they are going through some type of addiction or struggle in anything, whether it's gambling, drugs, alcohol, even pornography, who knows, what would you say to somebody who is struggling right now?
I always
What is a piece of advice you would give them?
Right. So my easiest piece of advice is you are not alone and ask for help. That's what we've kind of talked about already. Asking for help is the hardest part. But even like if you don't want to talk to anybody, you can easily find the recovery community online now. There's tons of places, even on just social media. I found a ton of recovery pages on Instagram, and that's kind of how I got into the community. So if you just want to start off, being sober curious and looking up, different community groups that you think would work for you, it's just you don't have to like go all in right away. Just if you even go anonymously on a person's Instagram recovery page and say, hey, this is what's happening, what do you like? That's the first step, just saying those words. And I've had people on just random Facebook groups that I'm a part in reach out to me because they see that I post something about being sober and I don't know this person at all, but they're like, this is what's going on. I really need the help. And that's there are a ton of people like me that want to do that for others. So whether you reach out to me or to someone totally different, we're all here for you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Ellen Elizabeth. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
You too. And it's fun. We have so much in common.
Oh, way too much is kind of like, ooh, this is fun. I wouldn't say it's scary. I'm like, this is supposed to happen. This is
I
aligned.
know.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You too.